Hey, this is Kevin Syracuse. We're live outside here at Sports Hour.
Did you get that?
Oh my God! Don't make it hit your face.
I understand it's football, but it's not football.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome into Sports Hour here on the SUNY Fredonia campus in Hendricks Hall. I am your host, Kevin Syracuse, along with Meyer Mikulski. And Meyer and I will be talking about March Madness and the NBA tonight. We're combining two segments in one now that the MLB season has started. So, Meyer, this is your first time talking about the college basketball scene this year, correct?
Yes. I spoke about it back 2 years ago, but because of COVID last year, I didn't get a chance to talk about it. So it's good to be back on talking about college basketball again.
Yeah, because 2 years ago, we were able to do me, you, and Chris LeGros with a three-person panel, but now because of COVID and social distancing, we can only have the two of us. But that being said, what a great Final Four we had this past weekend, especially with an instant classic, UCLA and Gonzaga. I cannot get over that game. The Baylor-Houston game, that was pretty much a blowout. It was all Baylor. The Bears looked great all night, but it was just back and forth between the Bruins and the Wildcats, and it was just insane.
Yeah, so first I want to discuss the Baylor versus Houston game, even though Houston got absolutely destroyed. But Baylor, they got a lot of production from their bench, especially from Matt Meyer, Jonathan Chachua, and Adam Flagler. Everything just went right for Baylor, especially in that first half. They were making threes, they were getting stops. And Davion Mitchell, he had 7 first-half assists and ended up with 11. And I can see the Donovan Mitchell comparison with him now, not just in the name and the number, but actually how he plays. And it seemed as if he scored 30, but he only had 12. But his fingerprints overall were all over that game.
Yeah, so Baylor, they hit a little bit of a lull a few weeks ago. I think it was during February when they had that COVID outbreak, and that caused them to postpone and cancel a few games. They lost to Kansas, then they lost to Oklahoma State towards the end of the year, but they found their groove, especially with this last game. The first few games of the tournament, they were good games, but this one was just dominant, and I think this is the Baylor that we were used to at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, but I feel like that adversity they faced at the end of the season, it was good for them in the long run. Because if you don't go into a tournament with adversity, then you're not going to know how to handle it once that adversity hits you.
Well, a team that really hasn't had any adversity is Gonzaga. And by the way, I said Wildcats a couple minutes ago. I meant Bulldogs. So it's the Gonzaga Bulldogs. But they really haven't had any adversity this year. They haven't lost yet this year. And they just keep rolling. And, I mean, they did face adversity the other night against UCLA, but not like a loss. I think a loss carries more weight than a close game like that in terms of knowing what it takes to win and just being able to reset your mind. Because I think that even though Gonzaga, that was probably the most adversity they faced all year, at the same time, a loss like Baylor had against Kansas, that really helped them to refocus and reset their minds. So Gonzaga has a great team this year, and I'm still picking them tonight, but it's definitely interesting because, like you were saying, Baylor has that adversity aspect to them, and Gonzaga just keeps riding high. So the question is, how much farther can they keep riding this out?
I feel like just because you didn't lose a game doesn't necessarily mean you didn't face adversity, because adversity is the game within the game also, not just the box score.
Yeah, and like I said, that game the other night, like they've had many great games this year. That was the best, one of the best games in the last few years. So they've definitely had adversity, but like I was saying, a loss really helps you to reset your mind and to refocus. But really, like, it hasn't affected Gonzaga yet this year because they just keep finding ways to win, and they're just playing great every night they step onto the court. But for a team like Baylor, who did lose to Kansas, I think for that team, that really helped them. So, I mean, different teams find different ways to win. And maybe Baylor needed that extra adversity, and Gonzaga doesn't. So I think it's going to be a great game tonight, though, nonetheless.
So going back on the UCLA-Gonzaga game, my takeaways for Gonzaga was that at first they seemed out of rhythm, especially in the beginning. Corey Kispert, their best player, he had a relatively quiet night. But Joel Ayayi, he provided a spark and played the game of his life. And there were 11 lead changes in the first half, including that shot that Corey Kispert hit towards the end of the first half. And then in the second half, that's when both teams really started going tit for tat. And Jalen Suggs, he had that game-saving block at the end of regulation on Cody Riley. And then at the end of the game, it was a debate on whether that call should have been a block or a charge. But luckily, on that play, Drew Timme, he didn't foul out because he had 4. And in overtime, they started to exploit the switches, especially whenever Jules Bernard got switched onto Drew Timme. And they took advantage of it.
Yeah, so Jalen Suggs was definitely the MVP out of that game because he hit one of the shots of the last few decades, one of the greatest shots ever in March Madness. But a play that I think people might forget is the play that you mentioned, the block that he had, and then he turned that into a very nice assist. He threaded the needle in between a couple of Bruin defenders, and that led to a dunk from Timme. It was Timme, right?
Yeah, Drew Timme.
So it was that play at the end of regulation that people were saying, I saw some people on Twitter saying, like, this is a play of the game. And like 10 minutes later, it's like, okay, hold on a sec. That's the second play of the game because obviously the game-winning shot's going to take precedence over that. Yeah. But Jalen Suggs, I mean, he's a freshman, and he's making these types of plays. Big-time players making big-time plays. And, I mean, you love to see it.
Yeah, and literally the play before that, Johnny Juzang, he had just tied the game with his putback off his own miss.
Yeah, and like you're saying, they kept going back and forth. And I'm thinking, great, we have double overtime here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too.
And then they're like, one last chance for Gonzaga. And I was like, can he do it? Can he do it? And then sure enough, he just banks it in. The banks are open at 11:30 at night, and it was just craziness.
Just a few hours before the banks weren't open anymore. Well, at least for the day.
So looking ahead to tonight's game, which tips off in 12 minutes actually. So Baylor is 27-2. Gonzaga is 31-0. The Bulldogs are favored by 4.5. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be like the UCLA-Gonzaga game. I don't think it's going to be like a Baylor-Houston game. I think it's going to be another instant classic, back and forth, back and forth. Can't promise on another game-winning shot, but I think it's going to be a really good game tonight.
Yeah, but I feel like Saturday's game between Gonzaga and UCLA, I feel like that's a tough act to follow, though, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's another thing with the adversity, too, is Gonzaga's riding so high right now. Will they have enough energy to keep up with Baylor? Because it's almost like Baylor could save a little bit of juice because they were able to take their foot off the gas. But Gonzaga had to go. And they're riding so high right now. It's like, how do you follow that up?
Yeah. And ironically, I believe the last team that went undefeated and won the national championship was UCLA. And that was back when they had Bill Walton.
Yeah, and that's the other aspect, too, when we're talking about adversity. Gonzaga is 31-0. The last team to finish the season undefeated was, I think, about 40 years ago with Bob Knight. And, again, adversity. How are they going to be able to handle that?
Oh, yeah, it was Indiana. It was them.
Yeah, so how are they going to be able to handle that pressure of being the first team to go undefeated in 3 or 4 decades?
Yeah, because we saw the Kentucky Wildcats just 6 years ago come close, but then Frank Kaminsky just hit them in the mouth.
I mean, they can do it. I think if a team's going to do it, it can be these Bulldogs. I mean, they have a great team with veterans and young guys.
But make no mistake, Baylor, they're just as good as Gonzaga as well.
Well, just a few minutes left in the segment, so we got to run through the NBA real quick. Again, tip-off is set for 10 minutes from now. So moving over to the NBA. So, Myra, I think we will have to just do one game from each night here.
Okay.
So we'll do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if there's any time, we'll report some scores from tonight's action. So first, on Friday, Phoenix defeated Oklahoma City 140-103. And I know this really isn't like a big storyline because it was a blowout, but the storyline here is that Phoenix is having an unbelievable season, and they are now in second place in the West behind Utah, who is also having an unbelievable season.
So yeah, my takeaway from this game was that the Suns, they took advantage of a Thunder team that was depleted by injuries and also a team that has a lack of experience. And they shot 45% from three as a team. And winning those games that you're supposed to win, that's crucial. Because if you lose those type of games, then they'll come back to bite you in the end. And I saw a stat that the Oklahoma City Thunder, their starting lineup is actually younger than the Oklahoma Sooners starting lineup.
Really?
Yes.
Like on average, you mean?
Yeah, on average.
Wow. Yeah, Oklahoma City is definitely in rebuild mode. We mentioned last week how they have tons of draft picks coming up in these next few years. Now, real quick, we won't have time to talk about this game, but Utah defeated Chicago 113-106. So I just want to mention that real quick because, like I said, Utah is in first place with a 38-11 record. Phoenix is in second with a 34-14 record, and then the Clippers are behind them 2.5 games separation, 33-18. But really, it's Utah and Phoenix in the West. It's been the Suns and the Jazz this whole time.
I think the secret to their success really has been spreading the wealth instead of just a steady diet of Donovan Mitchell doing his pick and rolls with Rudy Gobert. But despite their success this season, I believe that they're a wild card in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised they made it to conference finals, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they got bounced in the first round. They're reminiscent of the 2015 Hawks, in my opinion.
Now moving on to Saturday's game, the Pacers defeated the Spurs 139-133 in overtime.
So this was a big win for the Pacers. 7 different players scored in double figures. And they were one of the better teams in the East to start the season, but they've been inconsistent, and they've been bitten by the injury bug. But they still have a shot at the playoffs.
Now real quick, just a few seconds left. So Milwaukee escaped the Kings in Sacramento without Giannis, 129-128. And then on Sunday, yesterday, the Bulls defeated the Nets 115-107 without Kevin Durant and James Harden. And then the Nuggets beat the Magic 119-109. So real quick, just to wrap it up, Meyer, what are your thoughts about these teams as we were talking about them last week with the trades? How do you think these trades impacted these teams moving forward here as we get towards the last stretch of the season?
So for the Magic, I believe it was the right move to trade 3 of their starters because they were pretty much in purgatory for the past 3 years. Not good enough to get a high draft pick. I mean, not bad enough to get a high draft pick, but not good enough to compete for a championship.
And what are your thoughts about the Bulls?
I believe acquiring Vucevic gives Zach LaVine reassurance that he's the future of that team.
And then finally, for the Bucks, they didn't really make any major trades, but the big news was Drew Holiday signed a 4-year, $160 million max extension the other day. So real quick, as we wrap up here, the Eastern Conference goes Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee, and the Bucks are only a game and a half out, and then there's some separation. 6.5 games between the Bucks and the Hawks, and then Miami, Charlotte, the Knicks, and the Celtics. So that will do it for the college basketball and the pro basketball segment. Meyer, thank you for joining me. And next, we will have Dee to come on to talk about the MLB, which is in full swing now. And we will be updating you on the national championship game as tip-off is in about 5 minutes.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For executive service. Takes no time, just sign on the line at the post office for Selective Service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time, just sign on the line at the post office for Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down. A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
D. Thomas joins us now to talk about the MLB. And D, before we get into the pros, let's talk about some college baseball and softball, as D is on the softball team here. You have your first game tomorrow.
Yes, we have our very first game tomorrow against Alfred University. Our very first game in over 400 days, which is crazy to think, and our first home game in over 700 days. So that's crazy to think that, finally have a season. It's finally happening. Hopefully, nothing gets postponed. It's great. It's a good time.
I know, it feels good to have baseball back. The baseball team here lost both games of the doubleheader to Brockport last week. They will be in Brockport tomorrow.
They actually will not. The baseball game tomorrow has been postponed to a later day, and we will let you know when it'll be playing.
Well, that's news to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And lacrosse is 0-3 on this young season. They will be playing on Wednesday.
Against Dewaville.
Yes.
Yep. Still no fans are allowed, but you can catch the live stream on the FredoniaBlueDevils.com and just find the team, find the schedule, find the live stream. And we might have some of our familiar faces, on that stream.
Yes, so good luck with your season.
Thank you.
And now for the pros, what are your thoughts here on opening weekend? The Yankees are 1-2, but they're beating the Orioles 7-0 last time I checked.
I like to hear 7-0. That's great. I think, rocky start for the first game against the Blue Jays for sure. We lost in 10 innings. They start with a runner on second in the extra innings, which, is, I don't like it. I'm not just saying that because the Yankees lost, but I think they need to get back with the normal designated hitter instead of the universal rule or whatever the rule is, and keep it normal, because adding a runner on second in the 10th inning just is not the move for major leagues, for sure.
I mean, I've always wondered, how would that work? If it's one of those games where just no team can score, it's like, man, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, it does always end.
Eventually, but it's fun when you see the games go into 20 innings. That's fun. That keeps you on your toes. Because if you throw a runner on second in the 10th inning and they score, and then the next team doesn't score, it's like, oh, game's over. We like extra innings. We love free baseball. Get rid of the runner on second base. Free baseball is amazing. I want it every day, for sure.
Yeah, I want them to go back to the original way too. It's all part of the MLB trying to speed up the game, because fans, with this day and age, people are very antsy and they don't have patience. So they're trying to speed up the game to keep the fans involved now that fans are coming back into the
True
stands.
fans stay involved.
But, yeah,
True fans stay for those 20 innings.
If you're a true fan, you
I
wanna
would
be
stay
on
for
edge.
those 20 innings,
You
for
want
sure.
to be at the ballpark
Oh
for the
my God.
17th inning. But
So
I do
many
understand
chances of getting a foul ball continue when you get those extra innings.
I mean, I do understand it from like the viewer's perspective. Like from home, it
not
does
as fun.
get a little like repetitive watching 17, 18 innings. But again, I would rather just have free baseball.
But I do like waking up in like the middle of the night to check the score after I see it go into extra innings. And like when I see it's like 15 innings, I'm like, whoa, that was a lot. Like that's a lot. But that's like fun. Like it wakes me up and I'm like, whoa, they played 50 innings of baseball. It's a lot. That's like 6 hours of baseball. Like,
They played while we slept.
yeah. Couldn't be me.
But going back to the Yankees, so they lost 3-2 to the Blue Jays on opening day on Thursday, and then they beat the Blue Jays 5-3 on Saturday, and then they lost 3-1 yesterday, and now, like I said, they are up 7-0. It is currently in the bottom of the 8th. Giancarlo Stanton, 471-foot home run. It went
Grand slam.
over the bullpen.
Grand slam.
Oh, it was a grand slam?
It was a grand slam.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it was a grand slam. I do know Aaron Judge also hit a home run, opposite direction for his first one this year. Gary Sanchez hit a home run his very first at bat on opening day, and then he also hit another one on Saturday, which you don't see very often from catchers hitting home runs that often, especially opening day. So that was a pretty interesting stat from this weekend. I agree. And the Yankees are playing the Orioles, and Orioles happened to sweep Boston Red Sox this weekend on opening weekend, which are the two lowest ranked teams to be predicted at the bottom of the American League East division. So someone's got to be the worst team. And it clearly looks like it's the Red Sox.
So right now, Baltimore is in first place, 3-0, followed by Toronto, 3-1. Tampa Bay is 2-1. The Yankees are 1-2, and the Red Sox are 0-3.
Red Sox are 0-3. The Red Sox are at the bottom of the division. A good Yankee fan likes that.
That's right. So the other thing about the Yankees is that Domingo Germán is in the rotation, and I know we were talking
Earlier,
throughout the offseason
yeah.
about what's going on with Germán. Will he be accepted back by the Yankees? Is he done pitching? But he's back in the rotation.
Yeah, which is amazing to hear, especially with, the domestic violence charges against him and everything, and how his, fellow teammates were, kind of bashing him for, what was going on. But, it seems like they have, accepted him back into the program, which is great, because he's a great arm. We can't lose it. We can't afford to lose it. So, seeing him back in the lineup, on that lineup card, throwing is a relief for us Yankee fans, because, anything can happen with our pitching rotation, and we need solid arms every night.
Well, I think the Yankees are in for a great year. I mean, just looking at their roster on paper, it's very solid, 1 through 9, even on the bench and the rotation.
And yeah, they're 1-2, but it's the first 3 games of the season.
About to be 2-2, unless something
Whoa,
crazy
don't jinx
happens.
us. Don't jinx us. You never know. You never know.
So moving on to the rest of the league. So we're going to take one game from each day that happened. So starting on Thursday, opening day, we want to talk about the Tigers and the Indians first, because the storyline here was that Miguel Cabrera, he hit a home run in the snow. And it was snowing so hard, he didn't even know that it was snowing. He slid into second base, thought it was a ground rule double, and they were like, no, it's a home run.
He hit
And
it
it was
over
like
the fence,
picture
bud.
perfect. It was so cool seeing the snow fly.
On
in
opening
Detroit.
day, which was, it was April 1st. There's snow on April 1st here. It snowed on April 1st here, so, not even surprised that it was snowing at a major league park.
So what do you think about these two teams this year? I don't think the Tigers are going to be too much, but I think the Indians are definitely going to be in it again.
I think the Indians are for sure going to give other teams in their division a run for their money. They always give the Yankees a run for their money in the postseason. So, they're strong. They're strong this year. So, I think they're going to be great. I think the Tigers are going to be great. Who knows? It's the beginning of the season.
I think the division is going to be a lot better this year. Minnesota, they were great last year. They're going to be back. Chicago is, they're 1-3 right now, but they're projected to have a great year. I think
The Yankees are 1-2, and they're predicted to have a good year. So.
Yeah. I think Chicago's in for a really good year. They have a lot of young stars, which we'll be talking about in a couple minutes here. Kansas City's 3-1 to start the year. Cleveland's at the bottom at 1-3, but I mean, obviously, it's still young.
Yes, still early to tell.
Now moving on to a game from Friday, the Dodgers and the Rockies. The Dodgers took this one 11-6. The Dodgers being the reigning champs.
Not even
Another
surprised
team-
they scored 11 runs because they're the Dodgers.
Another team that, they're expected to be great, and they just have a great roster, 1 through 9, and even on the bench in the rotation. And the story from this game was that a cat that looked wild, a wild cat, ran onto the field.
Yeah, I don't know how I would feel if I was playing a game here on campus and I'm just like standing in left field and I just see a cat. I would be in awe. I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't touch it because I don't like cats, but like how does it just get into a major league park like that and find its way at second base, like running across? I don't know.
Yeah, like honestly, where did it come from?
That's my question. Like, where would it come from?
I have no idea. Moving on to Saturday's game, Cincinnati and St. Louis. The Reds were victorious in this one, 9-6, and we had our first brawl of the season.
And our first suspension of the year.
Yep,
that didn't take long at all.
So he was suspended 2 games and fined after he sparked a brawl. After he slid into home and he kind of looked down on, was it Yachty?
No,
It was the pitcher that
he
was
looked down
covering the play,
on the pitcher. So what happened was he got plucked. Well, he had a home run, and then his next at bat he got plucked, and he offered to like toss the ball back to like the pitcher, and like just before he was gonna like toss it, he like threw it, and he made his way around the plate. Pitcher threw a wild pitch and like slid into the pitcher's legs, but like the pitcher was trying to make a play, and then brawl. So Yachty wasn't having it. So
It's funny because Yadier Molina is always in the middle of a brawl, it feels like.
well, and then after, like, this guy, like, started the brawl, and then he just, like, ended, like, way in the back of, like, everyone and was just, like, not involved in it after, just, like, minding his business. But you started it. So you're going to get suspended and you're going to get fined. He tried to appeal it, and, he's going to get suspended 2 games. He's still playing currently, but they haven't figured out which 2 games he's going to be suspended for.
So I think this is another division that's going to be very tough this year. Right now, it goes Chicago, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis. I think all those teams are in for a great year, other than Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh might be a little bit better than we expect. They do have solid players at a cheap cost. I think it'll only translate to about 70 wins max. But I think between St. Louis and Milwaukee, and then Cincinnati,
There's going to be a fight for first place this year, like a fight. So maybe not a brawl, not a brawl that'll lead to suspension, but there'll be a fight for first place.
And finally, game from last night resulted with a Jared Walsh walk-off 3-run home run. The Angels won 7-4 over the White Sox. Now, 2 things here. I mentioned a young star for the White Sox. Yerman Mercedes went 8 for 8 to start this season. That was the most consecutive hits to start a season by any player in the modern era since 1900. So, like I said, I think Chicago is in for a really strong year here with all their young players.
For sure, definitely, I agree.
And real quick for the Angels, Shohei Ohtani. He hit a 451-foot home run with a 115.2 exit velocity, and he threw over 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, he was the starting pitcher, and he was batting second in the lineup.
That's crazy.
And then he got hurt in like the 5th inning and got an exit of the game. So
we mentioned a couple weeks ago, he's always hurt.
He's always hurt, but he'll come back.
For the Angels this year,
for sure.
If they want to make a run, he needs to stay healthy.
Yes.
So Dee, thank you for coming on. Top of the 9th right now, Yankees 7, Baltimore 0. So hopefully they can hang on for that.
And quickly, Baylor is up 11-1 against Gonzaga.
11-1?
Yep, they won a 7-0 run.
Wow. Okay, so we will have to update you on those 2 games as we progress through the show. Dee, thank you for coming on, and Jared will be on next to talk about the NHL.
11.
Physically fit. Train hard. You've got to be sharp mentally and keep yourself in top shape. You've got to learn all there is to know about your sport and be a team player And most of all, you must have the burning desire to be the best. Incidentally, that's exactly what it takes to be a Marine. Sports and the Marine Corps are natural partners because the demands are the same. Teamwork, pride, discipline, and physical fitness. If you're interested in developing to your full athletic potential, the Marine Corps Sports Program offers an opportunity to go as far as your athletic talent and desire will take you, even as far as the Olympic Games. If you seek the challenge of going out for the world's finest team, maybe you could be one of us, the few, the proud, the Marines.
You know, every mother wants their new baby to be healthy. I know that's how I felt about mine. But the mothers of these babies were not so lucky. These babies were born with the AIDS virus. Right now, there's no cure, but you can help prevent the spread of AIDS. If you're sexually active, please use a condom because it'll help prevent AIDS. Do it for yourself. Do it for your partner. Do it for the babies.
It would be nice if latex condoms were automatic. But since they're not, using them should be. Simply because a latex condom used consistently and correctly will prevent the spread of HIV.
Some people say the press goes too far sometimes.
Sorry, I don't think it's appropriate to comment at this time.
And how far is too far? Had they stopped here, you may never have known about Watergate.
No comment. Please, no comment.
Or here, you may never have been fully informed about the environmental
Policy is
crisis.
perfectly appropriate behavior.
Within policy. Would you say that secret activities are within policy?
Look, no comment.
Did you get authorization?
No, it was illegal. I said I cannot comment at this time.
Or had they stopped here, you may never have known if it concerned an issue that concerned you.
I'd like you to check the record.
Who monitored this activity, sir?
Who approved the funding? The committee approved all.
Now you say the committee was involved, sir?
No.
To protect your right to be informed,
I have nothing more to say.
how far should the press go? To learn more about the free press, contact the First Amendment Center.
Jared Marsh is here now to talk some hockey with us. And Jared, something very surprising, the Sabres have a point in each of their last 4 games.
Wow, finally, it's about time. It's about time that they won their 2 and then they lost 1, correct?
Yeah, so on Saturday, they defeated the Rangers 3-2 in a shootout. On Thursday, they lost to the Rangers 3-2 in overtime. Tage Thompson's goal tied it with just over 3 seconds left. Mm-hmm. And then they beat the Flyers on Wednesday 6-1 to snap that 18-game losing streak. Finally, the streak is over. And then before that, on Monday, they lost to the Flyers 4-3 in overtime. That was when we were here.
That's right. Yes.
And Josh was saying, "Hey, we're up 3-0" before we came on.
And then all of a sudden, you know it.
And then while we were on air, hey, we just lost 4-3. And I was like, oh okay, 18-game losing streak. But yeah, Sabres have points in all 4 of their last games here. So
well, that's good news at least.
Before we get into them more, we'll go over the other games in the NHL first and work our way back to the Sabres and talk about some season stats here. So the first game that we want to talk about is from Friday, and this was Colorado and St. Louis, and the Avalanche took this one 3-2.
Yeah, again, so this was a great game, obviously, between the Avs and the Blues. The Avs remain on top of their division. The Blues just fall out of the playoff spot. They're in 5th place. So this was a really good game for the Avs. Obviously, you have Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. So Nathan MacKinnon has 20 points in his last 12 games, 7 goals and 13 assists. Now, on the other hand, you got Gabriel Landeskog, 19 points, 7 goals and 12 assists in his last 11 games. So I would say overall the Avalanche are looking pretty good. And I think they're also on a 13-point streak, which is they're the longest in the NHL this season, and then they're third in history as well, which is amazing for them. And then also forward Liam O'Brien makes his NHL debut. after playing 12 games with the minor team for the Colorado Avalanche, which is the Colorado Eagles. And to also add on top of that, the goalie, Johansson, who stopped 25 out of 27 shots that he faced. So overall, the Avs looked really well in this game, and I think it was a huge win for them.
So that was Johansson from the Sabres, who they just acquired for a 6th-round pick. So good to see him have some success out in Colorado. Now, their other goaltender, Philip Grubauer, he is leading the league in goals against average, 1.76 per game.
Wow.
So that's another key reason for their success this year. So right now, Colorado is in first place with 54 points, followed by Vegas with 50, Minnesota 48. Arizona jumped into that 4th spot. They have 41 points, and then St. Louis has dropped down to 5th with 38 points. They are tied with San Jose. So the Blues are slipping a little bit, but the Avalanche keep riding high.
Yeah, again, it was not the Blues' night. Let's just say that. I mean, they hit the post 3 times, and they gave up 2 power play goals, which is very huge in hockey. You can't give up 2 power play goals because, especially with this power play line for the Avalanche, you got Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, and all these other players that are just really great for the Avalanche. So I think overall, not the best performance out of the Blues, and that's why they're out of the playoff spot right now.
Now, another division that we've been keeping track of here, specifically 2 teams from this division, the North Division, Toronto and Winnipeg. We've been going back and forth all year saying, do you think Toronto's going to take the division? Do you think Winnipeg's going to take it? Well, Toronto took this game 2-1 in a shootout. And right now, Edmonton is actually in 2nd place. They are tied with the Jets with 47 points.
Wow, yeah. So again, this is a huge game, and like you and Josh were talking about this last week. I mean, if I was a new NHL team, this would be one division I would not want to play in because you got teams like Winnipeg. I mean, who are like on fire right now. Like you said, they're in 3rd place, right behind Edmonton. The Leafs, the Oilers, and then the Jets. The Jets, I know that the Jets are probably going to get that 2nd place, or maybe even the 1st place spot if they keep on just playing that the way they are. And over Jack Campbell, who's the Leafs goaltender, he's an absolute star in the net. He makes 31 saves. He is now 8-0 for Toronto. They've been 8-0 since he started, which is really great. And they're also 5-0-1 in their last 6 games, which is amazing.
Moving on now to Saturday's games. We had a high-scoring game between the Bruins and the Penguins. Boston took this one 7-5.
I can't stand Boston. I'm just going to leave it at that. I cannot stand Boston. I do not like Brad Marchand, even though he gets a hat trick for them. I don't like him.
And he hurt Crosby too, right?
Yes, I believe he did as well. He also, this was a couple years ago, and this is why I don't like him. He licked someone. I don't know if you remember that or not. It was that's just gross. But anyway, so the top line of Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand, they're unstoppable. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a sign of a good team. They just keep their core players together year in and year out. Like Marchand and Bergeron. I mean, Chara's not there anymore, thankfully, for Sabres fans. But, I mean, they have these guys that are just, they've been there for years and years. And it's just like the same thing every year.
Yeah.
They just reload every year. And taking a look at the standings right now, it's Pittsburgh and Boston. There's a little bit of a drop-off, but Washington, they're in first with 54 points. The Islanders have 52. Then the Penguins have 50. And then the Bruins have 43. So, again, a little bit of a drop-off, but the Bruins have played 34 games. The rest of the team is 38. So the Bruins are always going to be there.
Yeah, unfortunately they are. And kind of going back to the Sabres here, just for a minute. So hopefully this isn't the last year for Jack Eichel, but if it is, and I was talking to my one friend at home, he thinks that Jack Eichel could probably go to the Bruins just because he played at Boston University and he just really likes Boston. And I hope not. I hope he doesn't go to Boston, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah, I hope not too, but at this point, like, I really wouldn't put anything past him because it's got to get to a point where it's like, we need to do it for Jack. Like, as much as people say, oh, he's a great leader, well, this losing will wear on you. And another losing season this year, I know they might be able to turn around a little bit here with Granato, but if they lose another year, next year, the year after that, where's this guy going to be mentally?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't care how strong of a person you are, if you go through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 losing seasons, it's just going to wear on you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But moving on now to Sunday's games here. So the Panthers shut out the Jackets 3-0, and the Panthers are another team that we've been talking about a lot of this year. They just keep riding high as well.
And with this one, this is their 6th straight win. So I would again kind of go back to the Avalanche here. You know, I feel like right now, and I was talking to again my buddy from home. He said that right now the Panthers might be the best team in the NHL, which I do agree with him. But I would say overall, I think the Avalanche are probably the best team right now in the NHL. I mean, 13-point game streak. But I would say the Panthers are right behind them though. So this is impressive.
Panthers are now 26-9-4, 56 points.
Wow.
So they are having a great year.
Yeah.
And then Tampa follows them with 54, Carolina 53, and then Nashville 41. So a pretty big drop-off between teams 1 through 3, and then 4 and 5 between Nashville and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as long as we're talking about Columbus, for what it's worth, they're in 7th with 36 points.
Well, at least they're in front of the Detroit Red Wings, because I guess that's a good sign. I mean, they're not in last like the Sabres, and they have at least more wins. But yeah, I mean, overall, the Jackets hurt this game. They got a lot. Riley Nash left in the second period with a lower body injury. There's no update on his status yet, so hopefully he's okay, and hopefully the Columbus Blue Jackets can recover from this.
Now, some games that already happened tonight and are currently in progress. First, Montreal beat Edmonton 3-2 in overtime. Winnipeg beat Ottawa 4-3. The Bruins and the Flyers are tied at 2 in overtime right now. The Avalanche are up 3-1 over the Wild with just over 2 minutes left in the second period. At the end of 2 periods, Vegas is beating St. Louis 6-1. And just getting underway is Toronto and Calgary. And then coming up in 20 minutes, we have the Coyotes and the Kings.
That's some. Wow, Vegas just demolishing the Blues. It's getting worse for them. 6-1.
Yeah, so now we have some more time to talk about the Sabres. So I want to ask you about Don Granato here, because it seems like ever since he's taken over for Ralph Krueger, it's been, I don't know what the right word is, but
yeah, I'm trying to pinpoint a good word to describe this.
There's been a lot more heart and hustle, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
From this team.
Yeah.
Because they seemed very deflated, and I think he's pretty much uplifted this team. So I guess those are the 2 words. They were deflated with Krueger, and Granato has been able to uplift them so far.
I totally agree with you. I think that's a great way to describe it. I mean, we saw with Ralph Krueger, obviously, loss after loss. But with Dan Granato here, I mean, at least they have 2 wins. I mean, they kind of see what winning is like again. I think that's very important right now. And like Josh said last week, too, you know, obviously there's still at least probably more than a month left of the regular season, but next season cannot come here fast enough. And I think right now the Sabres need a really fresh start with everything.
Yeah, for sure. This season's pretty much gone, so you got to look ahead to next year, unfortunately. Now, the trade deadline is coming up soon, so that is something to watch for, because the Sabres, I think, need to and are going to make a lot of trades. Taylor Hall is the guy that I could see them trade. You know, just a lot of guys, veterans that are on short deals that winning teams would want for a playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, obviously, we could talk about Jack Eichel here again. I mean, could this be, does he want to come back? I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't, but who knows? I mean, we'll see if he does. I would say, honestly, he would be good anywhere else besides Boston, but in the end, we'll have to see where he ends up going. But yeah, I think that's definitely important to watch, is the trade deadline, and see what happens here for the Sabres.
I don't know exactly who could be on the trading block, because it's hard because of the contracts, because you could take a look at a lot of guys and say, oh, Kyle Okposo, he should be traded. Well, yeah, he should be traded, but what team is going to want Kyle Okposo, who's done practically nothing this year, for $6 million?
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, and obviously the Sabres should not get rid of Sam Reinhart. He has the most points right now for the team with 13 goals and 11 assists, and then Victor Olofsson's rate behind him with 10 goals and 12 assists. So, I mean, you got guys like this that are finally being able to step up. So I would kind of take a look at your roster here and see what players you think you really need to get rid of. I mean, I don't really know. I think Dan Granato's going to have his hands full for now.
Maybe Ristolainen finally gets traded.
Maybe.
I mean, it would probably be good for his sake, but
yeah,
the Sabres are pretty banged up on the D-line.
That's true.
So can you really afford to trade him right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that is something that will have to be answered in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Jared, thank you for coming on. And to close out the show, we will have Sarah to come on to talk about NFL free agency.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you gotta register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink. What a great time for a drink.
If it's time for a drink this many times a day, you're not a social drinker. You're a problem drinker. And you could be well on your way to really messing up your life. Think about it. Talk to somebody about it. Do something about it before it's too late. A message in the interest of your better health from the American Medical Association.
This is not a commercial. If you think measles, mumps, whooping cough, or polio are nothing to worry about, you'd better think again, because they could make your child go blind or deaf. They can cripple or kill. To protect children, you have to get them immunized. Get them their shots. It costs nothing or very little, so get it done now by your doctor or local health center. Your child's future is in your hands. Don't let her down.
A message in the interest of better health from the American Medical Association.
Sarah Gordon joins us now to talk about NFL free agency. And before we get into free agency, Sarah, we had a big trade today involving the Jets and the Panthers, where the Jets sent Sam Darnold to Carolina for 3 draft picks, a 6th-round pick this year, and then a 2nd and a 4th next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is, everyone talks about how Sam Darnold is, doesn't have that much potential, but I think with this trade, I think it's honestly the Jets that have been holding him back, because I think he does have potential, and he definitely could reach a better level than he has been with the Jets with this new team, so I think that'll be beneficial for him.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, when this draft class came out in 2018, I know I don't know half of what the scouts know, but I was hoping that the Bills would draft Sam Darnold, because I was watching some of his tapes and I was like, this dude is really good, and I think he has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. So far I've been wrong, and I'm so glad that we have Josh Allen. But,
Absolutely.
but I think Sam Darnold is nowhere near where he can be, and like you said, I think the Jets have been holding him back because they've just had bad coaches, bad offensive lines, bad wide receivers. It's just been pretty bad in the Meadowlands for Sam Darnold. So I think he needs a restart here. You go to a team like Carolina, who has they're kind of rebuilding right now, but they have a solid team around them. They have Teddy Bridgewater there too. So it's not like all the pressure is on him like in New York and the Big Apple.
Yeah.
So I think this is perfect for Sam Darnold. I think it's great for the Panthers, and honestly, I kind of think it's a steal.
Yeah.
Only 3 draft picks, and this year it's only a 6th-round pick. I would take that any day if I'm Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll, like you said, it'll probably help to rebuild their team, and hopefully it'll help the Jets themselves find someone who they can start to build for years to come, who is a better fit for the team than Sam Darnold.
So we will see how that transpires once the season gets going. Now, going to free agency here, Aaron and I have been trying to tackle this free agent class each week. there have been a ton of moves. We got through the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, and the tight ends. So we will try to get through the offensive and the defensive lines tonight. So out of the offensive tackles who have been signed so far, who are some of your top signings here? Real quick, I'll just read some that are on my list here. Trent Williams re-signed with San Francisco, 6 years, $138 million. Daryl Williams re-signed with the Bills, 3 years, $28.2 million. Riley Reif signed with the Bengals for 1 year, $7.5 million. Cameron Irving signed with the Panthers, 2 years, $10 million. And then just a bunch of other, not like Pro Bowl starting tackles, but just solid guys who can come in and help. We also have Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher, who are still free agents. They were released by the Chiefs. So what are your thoughts here about the tackles?
Well, of course, I'm going to talk about, obviously, Bills fans, so we're going to talk about Daryl Williams is, I think, a great signing, a 3-year contract or $28.2 million, so, and nearly $14 million guaranteed. And obviously, I think that's going to continue to help the Bills' offensive line and protecting the quarterback, so that's a good one there. Trent Williams, I mean, look at that, 6 years, $138 million. That's, first of all, that's insane. It's crazy to think of that kind of money, but I think that one's going to definitely continue to help the 49ers keep their offensive tackle position in good standing. So I think those two definitely stand out to me as some of the biggest moves in this free agency as far as offensive tackles go.
And then some of the other guys that signed were Mike Remmers. He re-signed with the Chiefs. Rashad Hill re-signed with the Vikings. Joe Haig went from the Buccaneers to the Steelers. Julian Davenport went from Miami to Indianapolis. Kelvin Beachum re-signed with the Cardinals. So like I said, a lot of guys that maybe they're not going to be like top caliber Pro Bowl starting tackles, but they're solid guys who will be able to come in and help their new teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll definitely have something to contribute, no matter, like you said, not having the Pro Bowl status, but they're definitely going to have something to contribute and help these teams rebuild in the new upcoming season.
Now, what do you think about the guards? Because I think there are some more big names out of this class. Just right off the bat, Brandon Scherf, Joe Thuney, Lane Taylor. So I'll let you give some of the other names before I get too far into it. So
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the guards?
So I think definitely the Joe Thuney signing with the Chiefs for 5 years, and then you have Kevin Ziegler for signing with the Ravens from the Giants for 3 years, $22 million. And you have Gabe Jackson for the Raiders traded to the Seahawks. And after that, we have Kyle Long, Bears, signed with the Chiefs. And then James Carpenter with the Falcons. They're just some new names. And then John Feliciano with the Bills. He's re-signed for another 3 years, $17 million. I think that's a good call for sure. And so we just got a lot of big names, like you said, up here. And if we're going to help see with, I think that the Joe Thuney to the Chiefs is definitely going to help out a lot with them. And yeah, so I think we got a lot of big names, and we'll have to wait and see what they contribute to each new team that they move to.
Richie Incognito, he re-signed with Vegas. Quentin Spain re-signed with Cincinnati. John Miller re-signed with Carolina. And Dan Feeney went from the Chargers to the Jets. And the remaining free agents, Lane Taylor, James Carpenter, and Trey Turner. So a couple big names there, especially with Lane Taylor and Trey Turner. Mm-hmm. So we'll see where they go as the offseason unfolds here. Now, for the centers, what are your thoughts here? This class has some pretty big names too, right off the bat. Corey Linsley, David Andrews, Alex Mack, Rodney Hudson, Matt Skura. So a lot of solid guys here that are picking up some pretty nice paychecks.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, yeah, like you said, Corey Linsley is going to the Chargers for 5 years, $62.5 million. So that's definitely the top one in the centers category or position. And then some of the lesser knowns, I guess, Ethan Pokic is re-signed to the Seahawks for 1 year, $3 million. And then we have Nick Martin, who was on the Texans, is now going over to the Raiders. And then you have Brett Jones in the Vikings, Ben Garland for the 49ers, and Joe Looney for the Cowboys. So we still have some like you said, quite a few big names in this position, and we'll have to see what they contribute as the season goes on.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Andrews go back to New England. I thought he was going to go elsewhere, but he resigned because the other one was Ted Karras went from the Dolphins back to the Patriots. He was previously there, but then he went to Miami. He goes back to New England, 1 year, $4 million. So people were thinking that Andrews was going to go elsewhere, but he also resigned. So New England, they did a great job this year in free
New
agency.
England's definitely had, I was looking at the list of just all the moves by team, and New England's definitely had some of the biggest moves because obviously given the previous season, they, the Patriots, as much as I hate to say that, like as a Bills fan, obviously you don't want to see the Patriots, you want to have them take a break for a while, but they're definitely starting to take moves after the previous year, which was not the best for them.
Rodney Hudson, he was traded to the Cardinals. Gabe Jackson, like we mentioned, he was traded. So the Raiders just completely demolished their offensive line. And that was pretty much their strongest part of their team. So I don't know why they did that. They re-signed Richie Incognito. I completely forgot that. I mean, I didn't even know that he was still in the league. I thought he retired. He's retired like 3 times, and he keeps coming back. So I guess he's going to be back again. But I don't know why they traded those two guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but hey, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
Alex Mack, not sure if I mentioned him. He went from Atlanta to San Francisco, so they're building their offensive line pretty nice too.
Yeah, for sure.
Now going over to the defense here, we'll go to the defensive tackles first. Now this was a position, not defensive tackle necessarily as much, but definitely edge rusher that we wanted the Bills to address here. So starting with the tackles, who are some names that stick out to you here?
So definitely with the tackles, we have Leonard Williams, who was on the Giants. He re-signed for 3 years, $63 million. And then we also have Broncos Shelby Harris, also re-signed to the Broncos for $27 million. And then after that, we have Delvin Tomlinson, who signed with the Vikings and moved from the Giants to the Vikings for 2 years and $22.5 million. So those are some top 3 defensive tackles that I think are going to continue to contribute to the 2 teams that they stayed on. And then, of course, Tomlinson moved to the Vikings. I think he's going to help contribute to that defense a lot.
We also had Ndamukong Suh re-signed for 1 year, $10 million. Danico Autry signed with the Titans for 3 years. Derek Wolfe went from the Ravens back to the Ravens for 3 years. Lawrence Guy re-signed with the Patriots. Jerron Reed left Seattle for Kansas City. And those are pretty much the big names here. Danny Shelton, Jarrell Casey, and Tyrone Crawford are still available. So some pretty big names there if teams are looking for a nice veteran to pick up before we get into the draft season here. Now moving over to edge rushers. Here's where I wanted the Bills to do something, but it was very hard due to the money situation this year. So they really weren't able to do anything pretty much. They did get that one guy from Carolina. His name's slipping me right now. It was a different name. I will have to get back to you on that. But they really weren't able to do much. J.J. Watt, he went to Arizona, as we all know. They were reportedly in on him on those sweepstakes.
Yeah.
And I think after that, it was pretty much like, okay, we didn't get Watt. Now we need to address other areas of our team. So Watt went to the Cardinals 2 years, $28 million. Shaq Barrett re-signed with the Buccaneers 4 years, $72 million. Bud Dupree signed a huge contract with the Titans, upwards of $70 or $80 million. Matthew Judon went from Baltimore to New England. Yannick Ngakoue went to the Raiders. So a lot of big edge rushers here that the Bills weren't able to get their hands on this year. But like I said, I'm pretty sure that was because of money.
Yeah, absolutely. That salary cap definitely contributed a lot to the Bills not being able to pick up some of these big names. Like you said, J.J. Watt was in the running for a while. It's disappointing that we didn't get him, but as far as the Bills' free agency and draft goes, I think we did have other moves that helped a lot. So, but yeah, so other names, we have Melvin Ingram with the Chargers. He stayed on the Chargers edge rusher, and I think he's going to help continue to contribute there.
Actually, he's still a free agent.
Oh, yeah, sorry. My mistake. So, yeah, also we'll have to see if anyone picks him up. But, yeah, so some other names. We have Justin Houston for the Colts, and then we have Romeo Okwara Lions, who re-signed for 3 years, $39 million. So it's a hefty list here for the edge rushers, and we'll have to see what continues to happen as the free agency goes on.
Yeah, so Carl Lawson, he went to the Jets for 3 years. Leonard Floyd re-signed with the Rams. Trey Hendrickson went to the Bengals for 4 years. Hassan Reddick signed with the Panthers. Carlos Dunlap re-signed with the Seahawks. Tack McKinley signed with the Browns. And then, like we were saying, Jadeveon Clowney, Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Alden Smith, Adrian Claiborne, and Ryan Kerrigan are still out there as free agents. F.A. Obata was the guy that I was trying to think
yes,
of
that's right.
that the Bills
That's
signed.
right.
So that was their one edge rusher that they were able to sign. So that will have to do it for this week. We're out of time. We got through both of the lines. We will have to finish up next week with the linebackers and the defensive backs and special teams. A quick update, the Yankees did win 7-0, and March Madness, 38-24. Baylor was up 26-10 last time I checked. It is now 38-24. So the Bears are coming out hot. Like Myra and I were saying, they're riding high from, they didn't have the most solid games to start the tournament, but they're really starting to turn it up now.
Yep.
We'll see if the Bulldogs can come back. But Sarah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week at 9 o'clock Monday night.
Hey, this is Kevin Syracuse. We're live outside here at Sports Hour.